welcome. This is our episode all about self-care, and I'm excited to jump in quickly. Before I do, we are in module 4 of the Working Mom Happiness Method. Module 4 is the last method. The last module. It's all about tools for success. And there are lots of topics in module 4 because there are lots of tools for success. We spent modules 1, 2, and 3 learning values, boundaries, goals, and we created our best life master plan there. And if you haven't done that, I highly encourage you to go back and do that. Start from the beginning. Module 1 officially starts in episode 2. Episode 1 is an overview of the program. I talk a little bit more about me and my journey there. And the reason I recommend doing that is, well, number 1, it'll change your life. Number 2, we build upon it as we go throughout the program. So we use the Best Life Master Plan document in our morning routine, which we've already learned all about that. And then in this episode specifically, you're going to do a little exercise towards the end where you're going to write down some self-care items, because ultimately what we're going to use that Best Life Master Plan document for and all of the things we're learning is to create your best life schedule at the end of this. That's sort of how module 4 ends, and how the program ends is with your schedule that you live your life by based on your values, goals, boundaries, and all the tools for success here. So I'm just giving you a heads up in case you want to have something towards the end of this episode that you can write things down with. Now, that's certainly not required. If you're exercising, going for a walk, or you're driving while you're listening, no problem. Don't change your plans. Keep listening. This is a very small portion of the episode, and you're just going to make a mental note of some self-care things after you listen to what I say that you're going to want to jot down and use later when you're creating your best life schedule later on. So if you have a running electronic list or paper list that you've been keeping as you've been doing exercises here, great, just add this to it. And if you're out and about, you can just remember and add it later when you get a chance. No big deal. All right, so in this episode, for our agenda, we're going to cover redefining self-care, what self-care is and is not, seeking pleasure in life, and we're going to do that quick exercise at the end. So let's jump in with redefining self-care. I have a love-hate relationship with the term self-care in general. On the love side, self-care is amazing. We want to be taking the time to take care of ourselves. It's hard for us to instinctually do because society has taught us that our value and worth is placed in serving all of those around us. I love that self-care is much more talked about now and discussed. And on that hand, I love that there's a term for it, something we can call it, and something that we can strive to do more of. So I love that. On the hate side of the term self-care, if we were all valuing ourselves in the way that we should be, we wouldn't need a term called self-care. We wouldn't need it. And I really like to think about men as it relates to this concept. And I'll disclaim, as always, I'm not talking about every man, but I do think in general, this is one of those stereotypes that is true. So not every man, but I do think most men don't use the term self-care and they don't really think along those lines specifically. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. My husband, back when we were both working in the office, pre-COVID days, he would come home from work and have no problem walking in and doing something to decompress, right? Usually for him, it was going to play his guitar. There wouldn't be a whole thought process when he walked in. What do I need to do? What needs to be cleaned up? Who needs dinner? Where are the kids? How are they doing? I need to talk to the kids because I haven't seen them all day and I feel guilty. I need a snack. There would be no mental process like this. He would just go and know, and he would know instinctively that he needs to go do something to help unwind or decompress for the day. Whereas me, I would come in and think all of those things in my head. And I would feel some sort of guilt or need to ask for permission or clear it with him or, with somebody in order to just go decompress when I got home versus doing something for somebody else. It wouldn't be natural to me. I would have to actually really deliberately think about it and sort of push myself to do that. And, I think this is why we don't hear men talking about self-care all the time, because they are quite frankly much better at this than we are. And that's not our fault. It is because society didn't teach them to place their value and worth on serving and taking care of all those around them. They didn't see their dads coming home from work and cleaning up the house, cooking the dinner, taking care of all the kids. They just didn't see that. And we did. We saw that with our mothers. And so that's why it is harder for us. And I wish for us that we didn't even have to have this term called self-care, that it was just so automatic and daily for us that it was just there and innate. Okay, so that's kind of my love love-hate relationship with self-care. That was a tongue twister. I found this quote just randomly on the internet that said, self-care is not an indulgence, it's a discipline. And so as it relates to redefining self-care, this is huge. Self-care is not an indulgence, it's a discipline. And the way I want us to redefine self-care in our minds going forward, self-care is not going to the spa once every 3 months with our friends, or going on a girls' trip, or, I don't know, buying amazing sheets. Now, are all those things forms of self-care as society's definition? Yes. Are all those things good? Yes. Those are amazing things that I hope you're doing, and if not, that you should be doing. However, I want us to reframe the notion of self-care, and I like to even think of it as radical self-care. Because for me to do regular self-care and take care of myself in the ways I should, I have to think of it as being radical and that I am worth radical self-care. I hate that I have to think about it that way, but I do. I have to give myself permission to do, air quotes, radical self-care when, my husband will laugh at some of the stuff that I call radical, because to me, I get so much guilt about things, or I used to. I've done a lot of work in this area. So I want us to think about radical self-care being an everyday thing. So not going to the spa. You're never going to go to the spa every single day. That's not real life. I want us to think of self-care as just these very basic things that we do each day to live our best and happy lives. And these are things like, if you're in the stage of maybe you've had a baby or you have lots of little children in your house, you know that sometimes you can't even shower, right? Or go to the bathroom, depending on the circumstances of what's going on. So these are the types of things that I want us to consider self-care. So if you're in that stage, taking a shower, maybe it's just getting ready for the day, if that's what you like. If you don't like that, you don't have to do it. Going to the bathroom, right? Getting help from somebody so you can go to the bathroom. And then if you're in a different stage where maybe your kids are a little bit older, maybe, you work outside of the home full time, it's getting in time for body movement, going for a walk or going to an exercise class or something like that. Self-care. So we have to start thinking about the very basics day to day as self-care and value ourselves enough to make time for those things. So one example is this whole thing that we've talked about in other episodes of, for a lot of us, especially moms, we tend to have our me time at the end of the night when everybody's in bed, and we end up staying up too late and not getting enough sleep. So basic everyday self-care would look like creating that time for yourself during the day. And I know that sounds hard and impossible to a lot of us, but I promise if you value yourself enough, you can make that happen by asking for help, paying for help, radical self-care. This is where the word radical comes in, because of a lot of us think that is so radical to pay for help, to pay for some sort of childcare or ask family member to come over and help just so you can scroll your phone for an hour during the day. But you are worth it. You are worth that versus scrolling your phone for an hour at night and losing out on critical sleep that's going to make you feel good in the rest of your life. Huge for an example of everyday self-care. And by the way, that's also a sign of burnout when the only time you feel like you can get me time is at the end of the day. If that's something that's happening to you regularly, it's a sign and a signal that you are in burnout mode and you need to make some kind of a change. Now, a lot of you listening to this will think, oh, well, that's great that she says that, but that's impossible. I can't make a change. And that's where I challenge you. Radical self-care. Is that true? Can you really, truly not make a change? And for some of us, it may be, but I promise you it is a very, very small percentage of us. For most of us, it's that we're not valuing ourselves enough to upset someone else we care about or ask for help or put a burden on someone else we care about in order to take time for ourselves. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, redefining the term self-care. Now, like I said, those more more common things that we call self-care, going to the spa or, really getting outside of the home to do something special. Those are great too. I'm not discouraging those. I'm just saying we need to encompass everyday basic items into self-care. And that needs to include the 5 healthy basics that we talk about all the time, which are water, meaning drink enough water, sleep, getting enough sleep for you, the amount of sleep that you need to feel good and have good energy most days without relying on caffeine all day. Reminder, nothing bad with some caffeine, but not needing it all day to have energy. Body movement, eating foods that make you feel good, and stress management. Those 5 things need to be included in your daily routine as self-care. Okay, so that's redefining it. Now let's talk about what self-care is and what self-care is not. I want to start with what self-care is not. And the first thing is it's not selfish. Self-care is not selfish in the way society has defined the term selfish, the negative definition of selfish. The other way you could think about it is that it's okay to be selfish. It's okay. It's okay to upset somebody we care about or to put a burden on somebody we care about if our intention is to really, truly take care of ourselves in a way that is needed to be healthy and happy and feel good in life. It is absolutely okay. Self-care isn't going to the spa once per week, but not taking care of yourself daily. Okay. So we need to prioritize taking care of ourselves on an everyday basis before we even start to do those bigger things. Because you can still be burnt in full-on burnout mode and regularly going to get a massage or the spa, those types of things. They're great things. I'm not saying those are bad. We really need to take a step back and look at what are we doing on an everyday basis to truly rest and take care of ourselves. And it might not be every single day, but let's say most days. Self-care is not allowing yourself to skip your body movement all week because you're busy or stressed or at work, right? That's a big one. When we get busy, we think we're being nice to ourselves by giving ourselves more time to finish the work project and skipping our workout in order to do that because we're just so tired and we don't have time for it. And that's true. We are tired. And when we're in that mode, we don't have time. But the reality is it's going to impact your health. And when it comes down to it, your health is always going to be more important than your job. But also when it comes down to it, if you are truly having to sacrifice your health for your job, you need to get a different job. And I'm not saying that's simple. I'm not, but you're worth it. Radical self-care. If you truly do not have time to get in your body movement or any of those other 5 healthy habits because of your job, really radical self-care, it's truly time to make a change. And I promise that when you do, you're going to be much better at your job. It doesn't work the way that we think it does. When we set boundaries at work, we actually come across as more confident. We actually have more mental space to be more strategic at our jobs and to lead better, to do better, higher quality work. I promise when you start setting boundaries and getting brave and valuing yourself enough to do that, your work is going to improve. It's not going to have the effect that we think, that doomsday effect where we think, if I set a boundary, if I come into work later, if I don't do all this work, if I say no to things, our brain tends to think we're going to get fired. When in reality, at most jobs, it's actually quite difficult to get fired. It's actually really difficult. I know because I've had to fire people before. It's actually quite difficult and rare that somebody is, not pulling their weight enough to where they have to be let go. It happens, don't get me wrong, but it's actually, it's harder than you think. And for us high achievers, our brain thinks if we set a boundary, come in later, make sure we do our exercise or whatever it is, have time with our family, those types of self-care items, that we're going to get fired and lose our job, and then our family's going to be homeless. We really do go down that path way too quickly. So I promise if you take a chance, I did this and it was terrifying. I walked away from, an amazing career because I was in full-on burnout mode and it wasn't meeting my needs for, my own health and seeing my family. And then I went back to the same company a year and a half later. And the only thing that changed was my mindset and being brave and valuing myself enough to walk away from something that wasn't meeting my needs and then come back in a way that I had hardcore boundaries that were meeting my needs. All right. So I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not, but it really does work. And it's awesome when you get brave. And by the way, it never feels comfortable, but remember, ready is a decision, not a feeling. Okay. Self-care is not using food or drink every day to avoid feeling your feelings. We just did the intuitive eating a few episodes ago, and we talked all about how we need to stop using food to avoid our feelings, and that it is okay to do it occasionally, but we want to be aware when we're doing it. We really want to understand this is a moment where I just really need to choose this food or this glass of wine or a couple glasses, whatever it is, because I've had a rough week and I just need to numb out. Occasionally that's okay. But when we get to the point where we're doing it more days than we're not, that's where it's not serving us. It's not good self-care. We need that awareness and we need to stop doing that. Self-care is not occasional and self-care is not optional. It is mandatory, radical self-care on most days. Okay, can't stress it enough. Let's talk about what self-care is. Self-care is turning off the TV instead of watching another episode because the alarm is going off early to start your morning routine. So it is not self-care to stay up late and scroll your phone and get your me time in the sacrifice of your sleep. So scroll your phone, watch your TV. I'm not judging those activities. That's fine. But you have to prioritize yourself and value yourself enough to get that time in earlier in the day where it's not encroaching on your bedtime. Not easy, but you are worth it. That is definitely self-care. So when you're staying up late and it feels like self-care, it's actually not, because losing the sleep makes us feel like crap. It really just does. Okay? Self-care is saying no to the thing you don't want to do, even if someone is going to be upset or angry or disappointed with you. Self-care is still saying no, even when it's going to upset someone else. All right? Self-care is letting other people take care of themselves. That's a massive one, right? And hard. We all know that letting others take care of themselves is good not only for us, but for them as well. And if you have somebody in your life who is close to you and they can't handle it when you set your boundaries, that person is not meant to be in your life. Now let's talk about your children, because you can't cut them out of your life, right? When we let our children take care of themselves in ways that are age appropriate and they're capable of, and we set boundaries with our children, getting children used to having boundaries in their life is a critical game changer for their adult life. Children who grow up watching their parents have no boundaries will expect the people around them not to have any boundaries and will not know how to handle it when they do, and they will also have no boundaries themselves. So you are doing a favor to your children by letting them take care of themselves. Now, I'm telling this to myself too, because I struggle with this one. My husband's really good at this one. So I have been working on this and learning, trying to be more like him in this way. But I promise self-care is definitely letting other people take care of themselves. And then self-care is, I'm going to repeat it. I already said it, but it's worth repeating. Self-care is drinking your water, getting enough sleep, moving your body, eating your foods that make you feel good, and doing your stress management tools. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit. This is still absolutely in the realm of self-care, and let's talk about seeking pleasure in life. When we start to get into our adulting routine, we start having kids, working, maybe both, we fall into a rut sort of automatically. Even if you're not somebody who feels like you're in a rut, you feel good, pretty happy, pretty good in life, we get into this rut where we stop seeking pleasure like we did when we were kids. I mean, one perfect example is, do you ever notice your kids skipping down the hall? Like around the house, like they either skip or they run because they're just like happy and it feels good and they love it, right? That type of a thing, we sort of lose that playfulness or that seeking pleasure, that joy feeling as we get into our adult routines. Bringing that back in deliberately can be life-changing from a happiness and a self-care perspective. It hits those dopamine and serotonin centers of the brain. It gives us a moment to process depending on what the thing is we're bringing into our life. And so this is huge. And one of the things that you're going to do is when you start to create your best life schedule later on in the program, you're going to start scheduling in. So every week, typically on Sunday or Monday morning, you're going to plan out and schedule your week. And I don't want you to get scared if you're not somebody who likes to live on a rigorous schedule. It doesn't have to be sort of that type A. It can, if you like that. I just want you to at least roughly schedule a few things, and this is going to be one of them. So what things are you going to do this week as it relates to seeking pleasure in your life? And it can just be a couple. It doesn't have to be every day. So let's talk through some examples, and then this is something I want you to think about as we go into the exercise that I mentioned earlier. So one example is gratitude. If you can bring a gratitude practice into your day, it is incredible. And we know all the studies have been done on this, that people who practice gratitude regularly are happier people. So this can be part of your morning routine. We know that writing or journaling is one of the components of the morning routine. So if you just want to do just really quickly 3 things you're grateful for as part of your morning routine, that's an awesome way to do it. Or some people love working in just actually reaching out to somebody that day and just telling them how much they appreciate having them in their lives, or even just practicing gratitude in the moment, in present moments. Notice when you're feeling grateful and just sit in it and be in it and recognize gratitude, have the awareness of it. Game changer. Service is a common one for people seeking pleasure in life. Service is on that list, the list of things that can like help people get out of depression, brings a lot of dopamine and serotonin, just really can help with happiness. I always like to caution us as busy working moms and women on service. I think it's amazing, and I believe in the power it has in so many ways. So I'm not discouraging anyone from doing service. I just think we have to learn how to service ourselves first before we commit to lots of service outside of ourselves. However, I do think there's value in like separate and special service outside of your home. So let me just give you an example. If you were going to go serve food at the homeless shelter. So it's not something that you're doing necessarily all the time. Maybe you're doing it once a quarter, once a year, twice a year, something like that. That type of activity, even when you are feeling busy, can really kind of snap you out of a rut and really help you to have a perspective and have gratitude and appreciate your life. And then also you are genuinely providing service and helping others, which is amazing. So that I'm okay with, but it's more like don't sign up to be the volunteer director of the homeless shelter when you're sort of like barely taking care of yourself and holding it together at your job and with your family. That's more what I'm talking about when I'm saying we really have to be careful with service. Like, don't volunteer for the lead position at your church if you are exhausted and overwhelmed all the time. It's okay to say no in those aspects. It really, truly is okay to say no to those things until you are working on servicing yourself. But service certainly can bring pleasure and joy into life. Learning something new is huge. The way that that works in our brain can help us with serotonin and dopamine. Those are the feel-good chemicals in our brain. So if there's been something you want to learn, that's an awesome thing to start doing. One of the things on my list is singing lessons, and I really do mean learn because I cannot sing. And so I'm excited to start those. Taking back up a hobby. So there's something you used to do that you used to love. And I have a good friend of mine who she took my program in a group, and she is really good at painting and really, really loves it. And she had kind of painting on the back burner for a number of years as she had gone through a divorce and been a single working mom and all these things. And she recently, as she went through this program, brought it back up. And she actually even created the cutest little art studio in her house. And I'm just so excited about how much joy she's getting from bringing painting back into her life. So I love that. So any hobby that you used to do that you've put off for a while because you're busy, just try to bring it back in, even if it's just in 15 minutes here or there at a time. Get rid of the all or nothing mindset and bring it back in. Doing something scary or exciting is huge. This is huge for happiness and bonding with a person you do it with. So I'm talking kind of about like Maybe it's going on a roller coaster or I don't know, bungee jumping, which actually sounds terrifying to me. I can remember Mike and we were in Costa Rica on a vacation and we did a zip line tour, which wasn't terrifying to me. But at the end, there was this thing called a Tarzan swing, and it was a free fall. You were clipped into a rope and a harness, but the rope didn't catch you until you had like a good, I don't know, I think they said it was like a 7-second free fall or something, maybe 4 seconds. I don't want to exaggerate it, but it felt really scary to me. But I did it. I didn't dare do it first, but I ended up doing it. And I did feel like that was really exhilarating. Even when I think about it now, I can feel like the dopamine and serotonin kind of feelings going on in my brain. So I'm so glad I did it. So if there's something like that scares or excites you or gets your adrenaline pumping, you can try that. And that can be more occasional. It doesn't have to be all the time. But planning a trip can be really joyful for a lot of people because it gives you something to look forward to. And I don't know, for me, I enjoy looking at hotels and VRBOs and things like that. And just fun activities. Just plan in fun activities throughout your week that bring sort of back like that childlike joy. My son, Sam, is really into skateboarding. He's really good at it. And so I thought, hey, that kind of looks fun. I want to try it. And oh my goodness, it is so hard. Even just pushing on flat ground is so difficult. So I've had a little goal. It's been winter. We're just coming back to spring now. But last summer, I was trying to do it like 10 minutes, 3 times a week. And I actually genuinely did get better. I am not good by any means, but I can at least just like push on flat ground. And that's been something that's been really kind of just a fun activity for me and something that I can relate to him on. Well, I can't really relate to him because I'm not good, but it's something related to him, which is fun. So I had another woman who took my program one-on-one, and she ended up identifying puzzles as something that she really enjoyed and hadn't done for a long time. So it's kind of cool if you can figure out something as well that you can do that you don't even have to leave your house. Like you don't have to find a babysitter or anything like that. You can just do it in your house in a quiet spot. And she did that with puzzles and really enjoyed that. So it's whatever you like to do, whatever helps you to bring that joy feeling or get a little relaxation in, that's just deliberately bringing joy back into your life. All right, so the quick exercise that I'm going to have you do is, and you don't have to pause. If you want to pause it, you can. If you want to stop and write things down, that's amazing. Feel free to pause the video. Otherwise, you can kind of just like visualize it as I speak. But I want you to really think about, when we think about daily, radical, required self-care, where do you need work? So which of those basics, drinking water, getting enough sleep, moving your body, eating the foods that make you feel good, and stress management, just think about what do you need to work on and what do you really need to deliberately schedule in as we approach creating that best life schedule. And we've got quite a few episodes in between now and then, so you have time, but just you can jot them down or think about them. What other things on a daily basis could you do better at? Are you missing your bedtime consistently, and why? Do you need to take radical self-care and ask for help or pay for help in the daytime to get that self-care time in? Because the solution is not stopping it. If you're watching TV or scrolling social media or reading a fun fiction book or whatever it is you do at nighttime that keeps you up late, the solution isn't to just not do it. The solution is to get it in during the day. And maybe you don't do it for as long, right? Maybe you're a little bit more disciplined on how long you do it for. But it's not just to give it up. You want to plan that in. So if that's on your list, put that down. And then think about these seeking pleasure in life, bringing joyful activities deliberately into your life. What are a couple things that you can work on, even if it's just something small you can do without leaving your house, that you can start to schedule in a couple times a week to purposely bring these activities back into your life? All right. Okay, we're approaching the 30-minute mark. Quick recap. It's critical to redefine self-care and think about it as something that applies to your everyday life. And you are worth radical self-care. Even when you think it sounds dumb or crazy, you are absolutely worth it, even if it's going to upset someone else or burden someone else. Remember that self-care isn't letting yourself off the hook with your healthy habits. Self-care is actually hard work until we change our mindset and make it a habit. That is huge. We didn't get super into that, but self-care isn't always easy. Like the spa example I gave before, self-care actually a lot of times is hard work until we do change that mindset and make it a habit. Bringing pleasure into your life deliberately is key for happiness, okay? And then your homework is to keep that list of items from the exercise we did so you can work the self-care activities and pleasure activities into your schedule at the end of this, all right? Thanks so much for listening. As always, please spread the word about the podcast if you're getting any sort of value out of it. If you can like or subscribe, if you're watching it on YouTube, leave a comment. Or leave a positive review if you're listening to it on one of those podcast platforms. I'm asking that because it helps it get shown to more and more people. That's how their algorithms work. So it's much appreciated because I just want it to reach as many people as possible. So thanks, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Working Mom Happiness Method. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might benefit from listening. For show notes or to enroll in the Working Mom Happiness Method coaching courses, visit www.womensbestlifeuniversity.com.